If someone with a gun stops you and demands your money, would you call police?
Well, what if the person who demanded your money was the police? I-Team's Glen Meek looked into roadside cash seizures by deputies in rural Nevada and finds their tactics are, well, generating a lot of heat.
That's right. Some people in Humboldt County are sort of tongue-in-cheekly referring to it as highway robbery. Now, we want to say there is no evidence that police and prosecutors are keeping the money for themselves. But there is a very real issue of whether their zeal to intercept drug money is also catching innocent people in the dragnet. The I-Team has obtained exclusive dash cam video from one of these car stops, and it shines a rarely seen light on what's going on the side of the road.
How much money you got?
You're watching Humboldt County Deputy Lee Dove.
That's not yours, is it? Well, I'm seizing it.
This dash cam video gives insight into what some say is a pattern of questionable drug interdiction stops by Deputy Dove here along I-80 near Winnemucca. He stopped an out-of-state motorist for doing 78 in a 75 zone. Dove finds $50,000 cash and $10,000 in cashier's checks during a search of the car.
I'm convinced that's dope money. Now you may get away with the cashier's checks and stuff, but you ain't getting the cash. That's going to be seized.
The first issue is whether Dove obtained permission to search the car, or whether he simply told the driver, Tan Nguyen, that he was going to do it.
Well, I'm going to search that vehicle first, okay?
Hey, what's the reason for searching my car?
Because I'm talking to you. Well, I'm not going to explain that to you. I'm not going to explain that to you. I'm not going to explain that to you, but I am going to put my drug dog on that if my dog alerts I'm seizing the money. You can try to get it back, but you're not.
I took down from Vegas and let it.
Good luck proving it. Good luck proving it. You'll burn it up in attorney fees before we'll get it back to you.
But Dove never seizes the money under state forfeiture law. He offers Nguyen a deal. Abandon the cash, and you can leave with the traveler's checks. Otherwise, Dove will confiscate the cash anyway and tow the car because Nguyen's name isn't on the rental agreement.
It's your call. If you want to walk away, you can take the cashier's check, the car, and everything in it, and you can bolt. And you'll be on your way. But you're going to be walking away from this money and abandoning it.
Our sheriff and our DA have said, oh, there's no wrongdoing here.
Dee Holzel is a Winnemucca blogger who wants an investigation of the I-80 cash seizures that's independent of the local DA and sheriff.
And what they said initially was, well, these are civil forfeiture programs. These kind of things happen everywhere. There's nothing unusual about Humboldt County, but that turned out not to be true. When you have people by the side of the road and you're having them abandon their money so they'll be allowed to get in their car and drive away, they don't do that everywhere.
I don't have all day to sit here debating it. You need to give me a decision what you want to do.
Critics believe deputies have been avoiding court oversight by leaning on drivers to abandon their cash rather than seizing it, and giving warnings rather than tickets.
If they're given a ticket, then they got to show up in court and say, hey, wait a minute, I wasn't speeding. And besides that, this guy took my dough.
Deputy Dove, my name's Glen Meek. I'm with Channel 8. I caught up with Deputy Dove at a canine training event in Winnemucca, but Dove declined a TV interview. The sheriff's office released a photo of Dove with Nguyen's money following the traffic stop, saying the money would be used to help fight crime. But the money was eventually returned to Nguyen, along with $10,000 in attorney's fees, after Nguyen sued the department.
An armed person stops a traveler and demands the traveler's money and tells the traveler that unless he gets in his car and moves on down the road and forgets all about it, he's going to take his car too.
There's your license. I'm not going to call the tow company.
I'd say that might be pretty close to what you're describing as highway robbery.
And you're free to go, my friend. All right?
This afternoon, I had a candid conversation with Sheriff Ed Kilgore of Humboldt County. To his credit, he conceded that proper procedures were not followed in a number of cases. He says officers no longer ask people to abandon their cash. If it's suspected proceeds from crime, the civil forfeiture process will be followed and people will be given their day in court. He does put some of the blame on the DA's office up there, though, for not making sure that his cases that his office sent them were properly reviewed and processed. I left messages with the DA's office but didn't get a response. Here's what Kilgore said to me today. We want to do the right thing. I am a strong proponent of fighting the war on drugs, and I want to make sure everything we do here is on the up and up.
A Nevada family says their home's been bombed and strafed by the U.S. government, and now the military's trying to force them off their own land.
The family has owned a mining camp overlooking the secret base at Area 51 for decades. Tonight, they're finally speaking out after keeping their silence for more than 60 years.
The Sheehan family spoke exclusively with the I-Team's Glen Meek, who brings us their remarkable story.
It may be one of the last great untold stories of the Cold War. It's a tale of what happens when family, history, and national security collide. In what may be the final act of a Cold War drama playing out in the Nevada desert, a family is poised to lose land they have held in this state since Ulysses Grant was president. Here is part of their story and what they say has been decades of abuse at the hands of their own government. By now, most people have probably heard of the secret base hidden in the Nevada desert known as Area 51. But what you may not know is there is a privately owned lead and silver mine overlooking the classified base.
From our great-grandfather to our grandfather, our fathers, they were raised there. They lived there. This was their home.
The Groom Mine has been in the Sheehan family for 130 years. Since government testing started in the mid-1950s, the family has had one of the nation's most closely guarded defense installations literally in their backyard. They have never spoken about it publicly until now.
Well, first, we really didn't want to have to come public, but the Air Force has forced us into it. And we want them to know that what they have done over the last 60 years to our family is not acceptable.
These were fired over our property.
The Sheehans say their buildings were strafed and bombed by military planes in the 40s and 50s, and they believe it was an errant bomb or dropped wing tank that blew up their mill in 1954, ending production at the mine.
My grandfather and grandmother, Dan and Martha Sheehan, were destroyed by the actions of this government.
And we have some evidence that they absolutely were the culprits in that, and it was never addressed. They literally ran our grandparents out of money trying to fight them.
They have driven away prospective business partners and told them, if you buy the place or try to operate it, we are going to condemn it, you're going to lose your money.
In recent decades, the government has withdrawn large tracts of land around Area 51 and posted sentries to keep prying eyes off the base.
We've been illegally searched. I was threatened to be arrested on a trip when I was going out one time.
The guard told them that they wouldn't hesitate to shoot them.
They held people at gunpoint. They withdrew 89,000 acres of land, surrounded our property, made us an island.
But 6 years before that, they placed a security shack on the road that our grandfather built for access to our own property and started requiring us to go through their checkpoints.
This map shows the location of the Groom Mine in connection with the former nuclear test site, the Nellis Gunnery Range, and Area 51, which today are under the same defense agency umbrella. But these secure areas grew up around the Sheehan's mine, which has been in the family since Ulysses Grant was president.
Now, we're not saying what they're doing is unimportant and doesn't need to be protected. We get it, but we've been there alongside these people since 1955.
Right. And the truth is, as we talked about often, is you can get more view of what's going on that base through Google Earth and pictures that are out there all over the internet that we haven't put out there.
And what we're hoping is that our representatives say enough's enough. They need to step in and they need to fix this.
Now, citing the incompatibility of private land in the middle of defense testing, the Air Force is essentially giving the Sheehans an ultimatum. Accept a $5.2 million buyout for the 400 acres in their possession, or face having the land condemned and taken through eminent domain. The Sheehans find the offer insulting.
I mean, that's really what we're talking about. Is it okay to bomb your citizens, hold them at gunpoint, and then, to add insult to injury, just steal their property?
The Sheehans say the Air Force offer doesn't even cover the value of the minerals in the mine, let alone the family's close connection to the land, where forebears not only toiled, but died.
Either give us our property, leave us alone, or pay us what you owe us.
The Sheehans have until September 10th to accept the offer from the Air Force.
So isn't it ironic that on September 11th, the United States government is going to finish the last act of what can only be described as a criminal act to take our property on September 11th. I just find that ironic. It's sad.
Glen Meek, 8 News Now.
The Sheehan say they have documents to support their assertions about having buildings shot up or blown up by the Air Force. They want everyone to know they consider themselves patriots and they respect the Air Force, but they believe the Air Force's offer is woefully inadequate. We also reached out to the Air Force for comment, and though a spokesman did not return Glen's call, the Air Force did issue a press release on Friday saying security and safety issues have made it impossible to continue with civilian ownership of private land in the test area. You can read the full statement on our website. To have produced the illegal substance spice here in Las Vegas has now been indicted. The I-Team's Glen Meek broke the story about the links between the filmmaker and the drug trade back in May. He joins us now with those new federal charges in the case.
Yeah, the feds have gone after Burton Ritchie's financial assets in the past, but now he faces a criminal charge. The indictment by a grand jury in Virginia accuses Mr. Ritchie of being involved in a conspiracy to distribute spice sold out of a Virginia smoke shop. The feds allege in a civil complaint that Ritchie had a manufacturing plant right here in Las Vegas before it was shut down by federal agents.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm Jason with the Pretentious Film Major. Ritchie, producer of Heretic Films.
Burton Ritchie may be more accustomed to facing paparazzi on the red carpet than having his mugshot taken, but that's what happened this week. Ritchie is among several people indicted for conspiracy in a plot involving the nationwide distribution of spice. YouTube videos showing the effects of spice are plentiful and chilling. Spice is plant material laced with powerful mood-altering drugs, often sold in head shops and convenience stores as potpourri or incense. Smoked like marijuana, spice is nothing like real pot.
This drug is like a bucking bronco. It is so potent and so dangerous that you can't put a saddle on it.
Mr. Ritchie started a film production company and has been using blood money to run it, in my opinion.
Teresa Wolfson's son Victor died shortly after smoking spice he bought in Oswego, New York. Teresa is suing Burton Ritchie for her son's death.
His outfit, the outfit in Pensacola, Florida that he owned, was the manufacturer of the product Avalanche that killed my son.
I will never be a grandmother. I lost my only son that I put my heart and soul and life into. And I loved him and he loved me back.
Across the country from Teresa Wolfson, another family has also sued Burton Ritchie for wrongful death. Chris and Shelley Ledoux of Oregon lost their son Carl after Carl smoked some spice labeled Bizarro. Carl had a psychotic episode and died after police tasered him 24 times trying to restrain him.
I think you can only take so much between the drug and being tasered. His body gave out finally.
The suit is to look for accountability, responsibility of the people who are manufacturing and distributing this poison.
One of the places where Ritchie's company allegedly manufactured spice was in this nondescript warehouse complex right here in Las Vegas. I'm with 8 News Now out of Las Vegas. I caught up with Burton Ritchie in downtown Los Angeles in August, where he was screening one of his films, a documentary directed by Kevin Pollak. Ritchie declined an interview.
I would like to see if we could sit down and talk to you about some of the businesses that you were operating prior to your motion picture career.
Of course not. I mean,
No?
this is ridiculous.
I think he is buying respectability. He's hobnobbing with the rich and famous. He's making films with no care in the world while all these people are dead.
Though he now lives in Park City, Utah, Ritchie was arrested in his home state of Florida. Last word, he's still in jail there, awaiting removal to Virginia to face federal charges in that state. And so far, people indicted in this complex scheme have been indicted in states as far away as Missouri and California, and there have been 5 states so far where we've seen these products surface.
I know you'll follow up on this.
We certainly will.
Hawaii Washington couple says they were falsely arrested by the Nevada Highway Patrol for stealing a collector car they actually own.
The NHP has conceded 2 errors that led to the couple being removed from their car at gunpoint. It all began with confusion over a license plate, and it morphed into a harrowing experience for 2 senior citizens who found themselves looking down the barrel of a gun.
The I-Team's Glen Meek has the exclusive story of how one man was jailed for a crime he didn't commit and why he's suing the officers involved.
Driver, remove your keys from the ignition and put them on the roof now.
This was the beginning of a daylight nightmare for collector car owners Robin and Beverly Bruins of Washington State.
When I turned and looked back and saw 3 gun barrels pointed at me, it obviously hit me like, whoa, what is going on here?
Go ahead and lift the shirt up. No, lift the top of your collar.
Robin Bruin says multiple officers were shouting commands he found conflicting or confusing.
Okay, turn around slowly. Turn around slowly. Give me talk. Stop. Turn around.
And I looked at him and said, are you talking to me?
Yes, you. Turn around.
You know, what's going on?
Okay, get on your knees.
Do you think this car is stolen or something? And he said, exactly right. And the car is going back to its rightful owner.
Passenger, let me see your hand.
We were treated like we were Bonnie and Clyde.
Beverly Bruins was also removed from the car at gunpoint. She had a broken leg at the time.
So I went to reach for my crutches in the back seat, and then they yelled at me.
Put your hands up in the air. Leave it alone. Okay.
A woman trooper takes Beverly into custody and checks her background.
And asked me if I'd like to say goodbye to my husband. And I said, goodbye to my husband? Where's my husband going? And she said, well, he's going to jail. Rob, just relax. So I went over to see Rob, and he's in the back seat, no shirt on, hands behind his back, and tears are running down his face. We're okay.
Robin is ultimately taken to the Clark County Detention Center, where he spends most of the night in a holding cell with 24 new acquaintances.
I don't even think I've ever stood next to a police car, let alone been inside one.
While Robin was in jail, Beverly took her crutches and luggage to a hotel, where she was ultimately able to sort things out. It turns out the car was stopped by the trooper because it had a historical license plate that did not show up in a computer check. Restored plates issued in the year a classic car was made are legal in Washington. The registration, which the Bruins provided the trooper, shows the historical plate in a box called equipment number, but the actual plate number is in another box. The trooper did run this number, but he didn't include the plus sign, so it came back to the wrong vehicle. That's error number 1.
218.
Error number 2 came when the trooper radioed the correct VIN number of the car into dispatch, but the dispatcher entered the wrong number into the computer, and the erroneous number came back to a stolen car similar to the Bruins. The Bruins don't understand why officers didn't act on what appeared to be their own belief that the Bruins might be innocent victims.
Is it a misunderstanding or?
It might be. I don't. I tend to believe him. I mean, I'm going to run him first before I make a determination. If the guy comes back with possession of, history and stuff like that of anything, if I find out he's lying to me, then that's different. But as of right now, he seems to be legit.
I mean, he was on the phone, talked to his supervisor, talked to the other officers when they got there, talked to another officer when we got to the detention center, and they all agreed that I should be behind bars. And that is just incredible.
Robin was not this, this car thief. They knew that, and that's repeatedly on the video. You can hear them questioning themselves, yet they still chose to arrest him.
And so the Bruins are suing the officers and the head of the NHP for civil rights violations.
All they had to do was have one guy double check what the dispatcher numbers were, and the whole situation wouldn't have happened.
They should have used a better character judgment. We live our lives so we don't get into situations like this.
To be treated like both of us were, at gunpoint and handcuffed, and then, humiliated by making you take your shirt off and get on your knees on the side of the freeway. Why should that have to happen to anybody?
Glen Meek, 8 News Now.
We reached out to NHP for comment. A spokesman for the Department of Public Safety told us they don't comment on pending litigation.
We have a copy of the letter NHP sent to the district attorney asking them to dismiss the case against Mr. Bruins on our website, 8newsnow.com. Ray Cuddy masterminded a high-profile crime against one of the most famous families in Las Vegas, and now, 20 years later, he's out of prison.
So why is the man behind the kidnapping of Steve Wynn's daughter living here in the city where the truly shocking crime went down?
Well, the I-Team's Glen Meek located Ray Cuddy, looking for answers about what he's doing today and what happened all those years ago.
This is how Ray Marion Cuddy appears today. These images obtained by 8 News Now are probably the first new ones of Cuddy, broadcast in more than 2 decades. But for a time in 1994, Ray Cuddy's picture was plastered on Las Vegas TV screens almost nightly.
Mr. Cuddy, think you got a fair trial?
Cuddy was convicted in connection with the kidnapping of Kevin Wynn, daughter of gaming mogul Steve Wynn. Though one of Cuddy's co-defendants copped a plea deal, Cuddy and an accomplice did not. And that forced a public trial that put Steve and Kevin Wynn on the witness stand.
A man's voice came on the phone.
What did he say?
He said, "Listen carefully. We've got your daughter."
My father said to me, "Kevin, don't worry, I'll handle this. Don't worry, honey." And I just said, "I love you, Dad." He said, "I love you too."
The case never should have gone to trial.
Tom O'Connell was one of 2 government lawyers who prosecuted Cuddy.
We specifically tried to plead the case so that the victims, both Kevin and her father, wouldn't have to relive this horrendous experience.
O'Connell finds Cuddy's return to the city where he committed his crime curious.
I think it's unfair to the victims. Again, first the crime, then the insistence on a trial, and now he elects to live in Las Vegas.
These days, Cuddy rides a Harley and has been seen riding down the Strip, which took him past Wynn's resorts.
Mr. Cuddy!
I found Ray Cuddy in a public place and flagged him down, seeking an interview.
I'm Glen Meek with 8 News Now. Can we chat with you?
What?
My name is Glen Meek. I'm with 8 News Now. I covered your trial many years ago. Can we talk to you?
Federal inmates are commonly discharged in the jurisdiction where they were convicted, unless they make arrangements with probation officials to have their supervised release transferred elsewhere. But Cuddy's trial lawyer told me in February he didn't think Cuddy had another place to go.
It's been a lot of years, and I don't remember all of his family connections. But I remember he was pretty much on his own back then, so I suspect it's even more so now.
And so, Ray Cuddy, now 69 years old, remains in Las Vegas. Whether his supervised release will ever be transferred to another jurisdiction is unclear. He's scheduled to be on supervision for 36 months. Glen Meek, 8 News Now.
At the time Cuddy was sent to prison, authorities were unable to account for roughly $500,000 in ransom money.